Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm JP Tong, and welcome to today's episode of Detox Your Mind. So, today I'll be talking about expectation of others. Expectation of others. It's self-explanatory. We always have certain perception of how others should be. From our parents to our siblings to our colleagues, our friends, our relatives, we all have a certain expectation of how they should be or should not be. Well, we have to be very careful with having such expectations, and the key here is to hold the expectations uh, very strongly. And if we do that, there will be consequences. So I'm not saying we don't have expectations, but what I'm saying is to be mindful that if we only focus on on having expectations of others, then be prepared to be disappointed. And when they do not meet up to the expectations that we have on them, that's where we go into a reaction. Okay, and over time we will realize that that many people do not are not too agreeable with us, and over time you may think that so and so have changed for whatever reasons. Yeah, but what is important to realize is that expectation, having expectations and holding on to them is the key to disaster. Is the key to disaster. Emotional disaster. Emotional disaster. I'll explain more. Okay. So, for example, let's say our parents, let's say, either your mom or your dad, and you have certain expectations of how they should nurture us, take care of us, leave, maybe for some of you, you may expect them to leave a certain inheritance for you when they pass on, and so on and so forth. So, and whatever your expectations may be, and there are times if you think back, because they do not fulfill a role of what a parent should be in your mind, then you become very, very upset, or you become very, very disappointed. Now, realize this, it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they have made you unhappy or they have made you stressed. It's not their fault. It's just that we have this projection or this concept of how they should and should not be. So if you're expecting your mom or your dad to be more nurturing, to understand you more, to accept you, to accept your different ways, although they may have been brought up, or although they've been brought up in a different culture with different social expectations, and fast forward to our time, there may be what we call a generation gap, and for our new generation, we may have a different way of socializing, and maybe there are social behaviors that are different from when from during that time, and we expect them to understand and to accept. And if they don't, that's where we get into arguments and disagreements. They have their point of view, we have our point of view. And a lot of times relationships with our parents turn sour because of this, what we call lack of understanding upon for one another. So again, it's not the lack of understanding, it's because it is our we're holding on to our concept of what they should be like towards us. Okay, We're trying to fit them into our cookie cutter, like I always say. And because they don't fit, then we blame them for not understanding and for not doing whatever it takes to be a good parent. So you have to realize this. It is not their fault. It is not their fault, and it is not them who make us unhappy. It's actually ourselves. We ourselves are making ourselves unhappy. We ourselves are making ourselves unhappy, and you have to realize that. You have to realize that. So instead of putting the blame on others, such as your parents, or you can even apply to your spouse, your children, your friends. So instead of blaming them for not showing up the way you would like them to show up, then we actually be mindful about it, and we take a step back. Take a step back and notice how we're trying so hard to fit them into this cookie cutter. Okay? Well, some of you may say, but then if we don't have any expectations, then how do we have a benchmark on who are our good friends and who are not? And we can't go through our life, not having certain expectations. Well, baby steps. Okay, we take baby steps to unlearn what we are used to, which is to always have this cookie cutter and fitting everyone in it, and relearn to experience everyone whom we meet for who they are, for who they are. Now, always remember this: our mind has many, many facets to it. It will only show up when certain situations trigger trigger it to show up. So there may be certain facets of the person's mind that you may not be aware of because it did not warrant, because we that because the situations are such that that it did not trigger that facet of the mind. That's why you never see it. And that is why during this lockdown, if you read in the news that there are many people, many married couples who separate, who divorce during MCO, because most of us don't hang out with people 24/7. Okay, and when we do hang out with people, it is for specific. It's during a specific time, during and doing similar things. So maybe you have, you can meet your family in the morning. You go to work, and so for the whole day you don't meet them. Then you come back at night and you meet them for that 1 2 hours, and then they all go to sleep. So you get a glimpse of your family during certain hours. And maybe when you go on a holiday, vacation, you get to see them, when you're on a holiday, and that's where everybody is in a good mood and having fun. So you only see certain facets, sorry, of their mind. Now, when you are locked up with a person 24/7, then the chances of us experiencing different facets of the mind will arise because, well, number one, not everyone is used to being at home 24/7 for weeks. So when the people around you are going through an adjustment period, they may become a bit more stressed, a bit more cranky, a bit more emotional because everyone is trying to fight this new norm. And as a result, you see that facet of them, and they may not, and you notice that they may not be as patient with you, and they may they may be very short-tempered and not as accepting because they are under stress. So then we get to experience those facets of the person because of the situation. And hence, relationships fall apart. Because why? Because Well, that's what they say. Well, it's very difficult because they don't fit into each other's perception of who they thought the other party is. So it no longer fits. And that's what happens. That's what happens. So it takes mindfulness. It takes a level, training ourselves to be aware, to keep reminding ourselves that, you know what, just take everything with a pinch of salt. Everyone, although we may have known this person for decades, for decades, but if we have not gone through thick and thin with the people around us, then there are going to be certain facets of the mind that of their mind that you are going to be taken in for a surprise. Okay, and so have that openness to realize that we don't know everything about that person's mind. And that is why, well, to me, like I always share with my friends, I call my friends my very good friends or even my best friend, is because we have gone through thick and thin. We've been through, the parties, and we've been through arguments. When our relationships become very stressed, we still pull through. And it's through the test of time that makes me understand them and vice versa, and that makes a relationship, any relationship for that matter, much closer, much, much, much closer. Okay, so again, have that open mind. Yes, you can have certain expectations, but instead of holding on to the expectations with your life and holding on and benchmark your relationships because based on these expectations, be prepared to be disappointed. Be prepared. All right. I think we have some questions from the audience. Hi, Iman. Thank you for joining today's program. Yes, and what if our expectation of ourselves and others is on a professional working level? Is that acceptable so long as it is reasonable and realistic? Well, reasonable and realistic again is it's our concept of what we deem as reasonable and realistic. Well, of course, when it's work wise, when you're paid for a job, then it's like a barter trade. So the company pays you this salary, and uh, and expects a certain result. It's a work performance result. That is different. That is different. So that is because you're hired. You're paid money. You're hired to provide a certain service, to provide certain results to the company. So it is measurable in that sense. So yes, there are going to be expectations the of the result or of your work performance based on your position in the company, and that is how they measure your KPI. So that is different. I'm talking more about um, more social, personal expectations of others in general. In general, because if you uh, use the corporate context, it will be different because you are being paid. Just like if I were to go out and buy a product, and if the product tells me that it is such and such and such and such, then of course I will expect that product to be it as it is marketed, and if it falls short, then I do have my right to have it returned. So same thing in a professional environment. Yes, you are hired. So if you have a client who hired you for specific services, quality of service, as you have marketed it, then of course you have to fulfill those expectations. So that is different. Okay, that's different. All right, Yiman. I hope I've answered your question. Do you have any more questions? Okay. So, well, expectations of, let's say, your children. Okay. Some of my friends are struggling under trying to understand their children, and nowadays, you know, information is so readily available on the internet. So the children will watch whatever that they can find on the internet, and they absorb. They're like a sponge. They keep absorbing whatever it is that they see and what they hear. So there are a lot of things that they know, but perhaps the way they process the information may need some adjustment. But you see, but that takes time. That takes time. So whether or not they understand us, that depends on or what we want to impart. Whatever wisdom it is that we want to impart onto the children, that has to come from our actions. Okay? So again, expecting children to just get it and to just listen to you just because you are the parent, I think that style has to change. Okay, because children are now much more aware of what's going on. So again, I guess perhaps that's the generation gap again. So we have to realize that. So what we were used to, our parents just, would tell us off and we go, okay, fine. Or, but it doesn't work. Not, I think based on what I've observed, nowadays children are not as obedient, and they will challenge because it doesn't match what they have seen online. So again, taking a step back and really taking your time to inspire them through your actions. So that is what actually one of the more powerful ways to instill certain qualities that you want in them. So if you want to instill responsibility, you want to instill integrity, you want to instill loving kindness, you want to instill hard work perhaps, and whatever qualities it is that you want to instill in others, especially your children, then you have to walk the talk. And it has to be consistent. You have to consistently show to them what it's like to operate from these qualities. Okay, and whether or not they are going to adopt it, that again is based on them. It's based on them. Just like how when we were growing up, there's certain things that whatever our parents say, we'll filter it, right? We don't not about. I can speak for myself. I don't listen 100%. I listen to some, and there are a lot that I don't listen to. So, and that's my choice. So as long as I take responsibility of the choices in my life, I learn. I learn along the way. And I guess because I was away in the United States during my teenage years, so I learned a lot of things the hard way as I was growing up. Um, of course, my parents would be worried sick, but that's the space that they gave me to become who I am. That's the space. So I guess for parents, I know it's easier said than done. Sometimes we need to allow our children to have that kind of a space to make that mistake so that they and actually show them that what, although it may not be the correct choice you make, it can also be you can also make new choices. You can also make new choices. Okay, so instead of focusing on our expectation of what we want them to be, I think it's more of an experiential learning that we can impart on the children. And I think that'll be more pleasant. So it is about changing the way we want them to be and just letting them be what they want to be, but inspire them through our actions. That will be more empowering. All right. So, well, give me your thoughts. If write down your thoughts if you think otherwise, and we can always discuss further on this. Okay. So realize this: that our peace, our happiness, our joy is not dependent on others. How others disappoint us, how others do not fit into what we would like them to be, is not their fault. It's our fault. Realize this. It's our fault because we are trying to force them into what we expect them to be. So if you reverse that role and you put yourself in that person's position, and you ask yourself, do I how do you feel when others keep having expectations on us? How do you feel? Do you feel good? Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel very stressed because we're trying to fit into that, into what they want us to be? How do you feel? So take some time and contemplate on that. And when you contemplate on that, then you will realize, oh yeah, if we do not want others to project their expectation on us and expecting us to fulfill what they expect from us, then why do we do the same to others? Why do we do the same to others? So something to think about. Again, it will take baby steps to readjust because I've been sharing this with a lot of people and they say, how am I not going to have expectations of others? How? Well, you know what? I am very, very judgmental. I have a lot of expectations on others and including myself many, many years ago. And my teacher, Tan Rinpoche, has told me many times, you got to stop having these projections, these concepts of how people should be, situations should be. It is because of my attachment to this habit of always having these projections and expectations of others. It has made it caused my depression. It caused my depression because everyone turned out to be a disappointment. What was my teacher saying to me? My teacher was saying that I'm not being realistic. Instead of experiencing people for who they are, I I I'm actually experiencing what I want to experience, and that is not being realistic. And after a while, you become disillusioned, you become disappointed, upset, jaded. I was very jaded. I mean, I didn't want to meet anyone after a while because I would tell my good friends, "Oh no, I don't want to meet your friends. I don't want to meet your friends. They're all disappointing. Not that I'm anybody, but nah, I'd rather just stay home. I'd rather just stay home because then I don't have expectations on anyone, and I don't have to feel upset and disappointed after that. So I was not being realistic. So my way of processing my thoughts actually hindered me from really experiencing life, really living in the moment, and really perceiving people for whom they really are and not what I would like them to be. And that is the key here. So that is why when we are mindful about this, we will have to catch ourselves. We'll have to catch ourselves and say, okay, wait a minute. Stop having expectation of whomever it is who is in front of us and just experience them for who they are, And likewise, when others are with us, okay, just be yourself. Isn't that more pleasant? So when we do that, then there's no stress on people around you. They don't have to tiptoe around you. They don't have to say things the way you like them to say things to you. Otherwise, you are going to snap at them and be nasty at them. And some people just don't want to see that side of you, and they just rather tiptoe around you and pretend to be to be someone that you want them to be. So you lose out experiencing, sorry, you lose out experiencing them for who they really are because they have to pretend to be somebody. They have to pretend to be the person you want them to be. And that to me is pretty sad because then there's so much stress with this relationship. So this applies to not just your friends, it can also apply to your spouse, it can apply to your colleagues, your relatives, your children, and so on and so forth. So we lose out. We lose out experiencing the real people for whom they really are. All right, so think about this topic about expectation of others. It is something that we do every day, every day. So if we think about it and if we are mindful about it, and you let me know, catch yourself and really open up your mind, your heart to experiencing people for who they truly are. Again, yes, you will only see, you know, different facets of them, not all, but a few facets of their mind. That's good enough. And then along the years, when different situations arise, then you will see different parts of their mind arise, and you get to experience that other part of them. Okay, so yes, we have different facets. Even with ourselves, some we are happy with, some we are not happy with, but they are there. So that is why we have this program called Detox Your Mind, so that we can understand how our mind, we understand ourselves, how our mind works, and then from there we can slowly let go of all these um, habits that are not serving us, and unlearn them and relearn and develop new habits so that we can be happier with ourselves. Happy with ourselves, and also we will be able to have more peace and joy in our lives. All right, so on that note, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And if you would like to join the workshop, which starts at 9:45, do register there's an email at the caption. You can actually email to the admin and you'll be given a Google Meet link and you can actually join me on the workshop. And during the workshop, that's where I will guide you on how to be mindful of what I just spoke about. All right. And before we end this program, if you like our programs, please make it a point to make a small contribution because it is through these contributions that we are able to sustain our online programs for everyone to enjoy and to learn. All right. So take care, and I will see you. Next week. And yes, we have to acknowledge the sponsors. Okay, so today's sponsor, we have two sponsors. They're both anonymous, and the dedication is dedicated towards all beings' liberation from suffering and attainment of compassion, wisdom, and true happiness. The second sponsor is anonymous, dedication, blessings to all sentient beings. So thank you very much for your sponsorship, and we really, really appreciate it. We would like as many people as possible to benefit from our online programs. All right, so on that note, I'll see you next week. Bye bye.